Hey everyone, hope you're doing well out there. In today's video, I wanted to address the mental health crisis and talk about a couple of key important things to understand about this crisis and how we can go about healing it. So if you're interested, please join me. And really quick, before I go ahead and get into the major points here, I want to just introduce myself for anyone who might be a new viewer here. Hello, my name is Dave. I'm a coach, I'm a hypnotherapist, I'm a trained NLP practitioner, and I serve people generally around personal development issues, generally around personal development goals, also around spiritual healing, spiritual awakening, psychedelics, psychedelic therapy, this kind of a thing. This is kind of my wheelhouse. So welcome to the channel. And if you're interested in these topics, you are in the right place. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and pivot into my first point here, which is something really important to understand about the mental health crisis, which is that really good therapy is actually not scalable. So let's talk about that. So I've been feeling really moved to start talking more about the mental health crisis and help people understand the role of how we show up in our own healing process, how we can address the mental health crisis, because there are literally hundreds of millions of people struggling with their mental health, and we just don't have that many therapists, let alone that many therapists, psychiatrists, coaches, spiritual healers, psychedelic therapists, blah 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 blah. Even if we laid out all the different types of therapists and gave them all a full caseload, it would not be enough to help the mental health crisis. So I've been thinking a lot about using this channel, and this is really one of my core intentions here about why I'm doing this, why this channel exists, to communicate to you a better understanding of the territory and the process of healing your own mental health, how to become your own healer, how to become your own therapist, how to transform and let go of your own trauma as a DIYer, right? I think there's an important need for this information out there for people to DIY, right? So the first point I want to make here to help you kind of understand where we're at with the mental health crisis. And, by the way, side note, if you are interested in a video about my thoughts about why we have a mental health crisis, I'm happy to make that too. But okay, back to the major point here. One of the first things I want you to understand is that really good therapy, really skillful, well done, high caliber, really like finely done therapy is not scalable. Okay, I want you to understand this. To receive the kind of therapy you deserve in order to heal is generally not scalable. It's not something we can copy and paste and reproduce at mass, at scale, at the level of the need of the mental health crisis. This is something you won't hear therapists talk about a lot. You certainly won't hear psychiatrists talk about, or people who are quote unquote mental health professionals. You won't hear them talk about this a lot for a bunch of reasons. But it's really important to understand the situation we're in, right? Which is that in order to properly heal, it requires a degree of patience and connectedness and mutuality and resonance with each other, and as much time as your nervous system needs in order to feel safe and connected and move through whatever the knots in your nervous system are that need untying. And that can take a while. And that can take patience, and that can take care, and that can take a high degree of being really present as a human being for the therapist to the client, right? So, for each of us to really untie these knots and really heal our mental health, we really need a certain kind of slow, tuned in, present attention. And that, first of all, is just hard to cultivate in a 50-minute hour. I think the whole 50-minute hour thing is doesn't work, And if you want to hear more about how I structure my whole practice, there's a whole theory behind it. I'm happy to make a video about that. But basically, a 50-minute hour is not enough time to really build really good, contained, safe connection, right? First of all. Second of all, uh, some of us need more of that in order to get to that place of feeling comfortable and safe enough to address whatever needs addressing. Some of us need less of that. But I'm kind of rambling here, but the thing I'm trying to convey is that good therapy is a nuanced, very human, very connected, very patient, very detailed, sometimes very delicate, sometimes very persistent kind of process, right? It requires a fine degree of attention that even a highly skilled therapist, maybe on their less than perfect days, can't necessarily bring to the table. But this is what the nervous system needs to feel safe and really heal. What doesn't work from my point of view is adding more drugs to the equation and better living through chemistry, and this operating on this thesis, this, what's been proven to be incorrect thesis that it's all about neurochemistry. I don't think that's correct. I don't think that neurochemistry equates to mental health in a one-to-one thing. There's some correlation there clearly, but I don't think it's causal in the same way that, they would have us believe, right? So good mental health requires real human connection and a sense of connectedness and a sense of patience and a sense of safety and a sense of enough time in the container for you to unfold whatever it is that needs unfolding, right? And that doesn't scale, right? That's not something you can't copy paste and prescribe out in short little 50-minute hours or less, little 10-minute visits to a psychiatrist. You can't copy and paste human connection, being seen, being felt, being understood, being worked with, being allowed to kind of ebb and flow through finding your comfort with the healing process, right? Unfortunately. So the corollary is also true. So good therapy doesn't scale, and what we have at scale, what has been scaled out, isn't really that effective. Unfortunately, right? I wish it were. And if you're one of those people who's gotten benefit from, pharmaceuticals or from real simple, basic 50-minute CBT sessions, more power to you. God bless you. I'm so happy for you. But what I see over and over and over as a coach, a lot of my clients that come into me are people who, quite frankly, have been in therapy for years or decades, and they feel that therapy isn't working for them, has failed them, hasn't really helped them to feel seen or connected or able to undo what needs undoing. And what I see over and over and over, even in the psychedelic therapy community, which I'll address later in this video, is that what we have at scale just isn't that effective. It doesn't get in there enough. It doesn't, really reach into the places we need it to. And it's not really, the pretense of compassion doesn't work for the nervous system, right? We can't really have doctors and psychiatrists and, like just your basic bog standard therapists who are going through the motions of pretending to care, have that land as real caring, as real connectedness. The nervous system knows, right? We're human beings. We're finely tuned to perceive other people's state as part of our own kind of self-protection mechanism, right? So when we're in the presence of a therapist who's just going through the motions, we know and we feel it. And I think the nervous system generally will, in that kind of situation, not be willing to open up and move what needs moving because it correctly recognizes that this is not a really connected container in order to do that healing work. So I know I'm kind of rambling here, but just to summarize this first point, good therapy isn't scalable. It takes more time and more investment and more attention and more effort, right? But also the inverse is true. What we have at scale isn't really that effective. Okay, so that's my first point here. Let's talk about the second point. Okay, the second point I would make to you, and I am biased because I am a big fan of personal development work. I'm wired to kind of DIY my own healing process. I had to go through that myself. So maybe there's a sunk cost fallacy thing here, and I'm a little overinvested in this, to be fair, But from my point of view, I think it's really important to understand that each of us should know how to maintain and take care of our own mental health in exactly the same way that I believe each of us should also know how to maintain our physical health, right? In other words, we shouldn't be outsourcing our physical or our mental health to doctors or to, big pharma or to big food and not be, acutely learning about the ins and outs of exercise and diet and nutrition and, sunlight exposure and, chemicals and their impacts on our body. Like in the physical health space, there's a lot to learn in order to properly maintain your health. I would submit to you that that's an important set of knowledge to know. That is part of taking care. That we didn't get an owner's manual, as the cliche goes, for our bodies or for our minds. So you've got to take up the work to take care of your own body to maintain your health, right? I would submit to you the same thing is true with your mental health. That I think there are a lot of people that I see over and over who are conditioned on the back of a natural wiring we have to be kind of codependent. We are conditioned to outsource our mental health to others and expect others to fix or save or liberate us from our suffering rather than doing it ourselves. And I would submit to you that that kind of mindset is never going to be, it's not going to get you as good of results as if you take this up yourself and take it on yourself. So, again, I might be biased here, but I really think that it's very important that all of us be responsible for our own mental health, right? And not just outsource that to pharmaceuticals, which can have all kinds of side effects and damages and blah, 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 right? That's a whole other conversation, but it's real. You know, we can't be outsourcing it to, therapists that don't care or are barely available. We can't be outsourcing it out to, spiritual teachers that are going to give you a spiritual solution to what is a psychological problem, right? Where there's a mismatch there. We can't be outsourcing our power, right? And here on the channel, you know, I'm really mindful of this, and I want to be clear that I'm not trying to position myself as a guru, necessarily as a teacher, as a leader. I don't want you to outsource your power to me either. I want to give you your power back. I want to point you towards where your power is and how you can access your own inner healing ability, which is a whole different ballgame, right? So I really would encourage you to take it seriously. Take seriously improving your own mental health, being responsible for your own mental health, and working at that. And to be fair, from what I see from comments and from emails and from clients of mine who have come through the channel, probably if you're interested in this topic or interested in this channel, you are already responsible for that or willing to be. But I think we're in a situation, another way of saying this that might be a little more kind of pessimistic. I think we're in a situation because good mental health doesn't scale, good mental health care doesn't scale, where we need to know how to DIY it ourselves, right? Because there may not be the magic discovery or the magic pharmaceutical or the technique that works for everybody, right? That may not exist. You might have to like really figure it out for yourself what particularly works for you. Part of my intention here on the channel is to share what I found works for me and what I found works in general better than things that don't work as well. But every person's going to be different. Some of the things that work for me aren't going to work for you. I know that already, right? But take up the responsibility, take it up as yours. Lean into maintaining your own mental health. I think this is part of how we get out of this pickle, this mental health crisis, this collective, overwhelm of, just inundation of, personality disorders and anxiety disorders and depression and blah, blah, blah. We see symptoms galore, right? And I think it's important that we pivot from just self-diagnosing into action and exploration and learning and getting on the path properly. Okay, so let me share my third point, which is about psychedelic therapy and the role of psychedelic therapy in the mental health crisis. And this is a nuanced point. This isn't just, psychedelics good, this is our savior. Obviously, you probably can tell by this point in the video, or if you've watched my videos before, it's probably going to be more of a nuanced, possibly contrarian point. So let me share it with you. Okay, when it comes to psychedelic therapy, part of what I've been trying to teach you here on the channel and show you is how it's really done. That there is a thing there, there is a skill, there's an underlying unconscious biopsychological spiritual mechanism of self-healing that we can access on psychedelics. And I want to teach you how to do that for yourself. I want to teach you what self-healing is like and what this process is, what this thing is, this mechanism, this capacity, this process, this flow of healing that really skilled psychedelic therapists know how to access, right? This is what I want to teach you. This is what I want to show you so you can do this for yourself, right? My general thoughts on the psychedelic therapy landscape are pretty much echoes of what I said at the beginning of this video, which is that, you know, uh, good therapy doesn't scale. And what we have at scale isn't really very good. right? And I think this is simultaneously true in the psychedelic therapy landscape. So a lot, and I'll do another video on this to unpack this further. A lot of the kind of fundamental basics that you've probably learned about psychedelic therapy um, don't really make a big impact in my experience based on what I'm after and what I'm trying to convey and what I have experienced and what I know is possible. The kind of default standard, mode of psychedelic therapy that even a lot of psychedelic therapists are learning isn't that really impactful, isn't really transformative. It's made to scale, right? So somewhere along the line, I'm not sure who thought this up, I'm not sure how they figured this out, but somewhere along the line, the conversation was, as it started to get out there to the public about psychedelic therapy, say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there was people, figuring out how can we teach people how to do this at scale. And there's kind of an emergent understanding of psychedelic therapy, eye shades and music and however many grams of mushrooms and sitting there silently exploring your internality, broadly speaking, right? There's that thing. And people commonly assume, oh, this is psychedelic therapy. This is how it's done. And it's all about just letting the medicine teach me, right? And it's this very, hands off, trust the medicine, let the medicine heal and fix you kind of approach. And the reason that that's being taught is because that scales, not because that's the most effective way to do it, right? What I found as you go deeper into the psychedelic therapy landscape is you understand the process of therapy and healing more intimately, which is what I'm trying to teach you here on the channel. As you understand how to work with yourself and observe your own, inner workings, or if you're working with someone else, which don't do therapy on other people if you're not trained, by the way, but sitting, you'll see this sometimes too. There's a thing. There's a thing there. There's a skill. There's a more active, skillful way to do this that is much more effective and not so talked about unless you're kind of a head that's deep in this community, right? So I want to convey this to you that in order to fix the mental health crisis, from my point of view, one man's opinion, not even a licensed therapist, grain of salt, please, okay? From one man's point of view here, someone who's explored this deeply, though, there is a more effective way to do this. And if we want to really access our own mental health and maintain it and support it, there's an understanding you need, there's a set of skills you need. And will require patience and time and curiosity and exploration on your part. And that's something that you can find therapists to do, right? There are people out there, and I'm meeting more and more that are just like who get it, and it's amazing. It's so beautiful to see in process someone at this level of skill doing their work. It's profound. And this is what I want to teach you. But the generic forms of psychedelic therapy and the generic forms of therapy that scale don't work well, honestly. This is one of the problems with the mental health crisis that we're dealing with here. So, points made. Let me just kind of summarize and wrap this up here, and we'll call it a video. Okay, so quick summary here. I realized I rambled a little bit in this video and I'm a bit passionate, and this is less of a how-to step-by-step kind of video, but hopefully this is hitting home for you because this is an important message. So to summarize really quick, first point, essentially good therapy doesn't really scale very well. There just aren't that many therapists that are skilled, like really at a high level. And those therapists are usually highly paid and maxed out and super booked. And conversely, what we have at scale really underserves, I think, most of us, and really, I would kind of say sucks, to put it bluntly. Okay. Second point, you should be responsible for your own mental health, in my opinion. I think that it's really important to take up responsibility for maintaining your own mental health and not outsourcing that to somebody else or hoping someone else is going to save or fix you, right? I would really encourage you to start to study and learn how this is done. Of course, this is something I'm teaching here on the channel, teaching in my course, which the link is below, but it's not, however you get there, just get there. Just take this up. Consider this part of maintaining your own well-being in the same way that it's important to understand health and physical health and diet and exercise and good sleep and good hygiene and that kind of a thing, right? So that's my second point. My third point is that psychedelic therapy, which we're all excited about, and there's all this marketing buzz and legalization buzz, same deal. Really, if I'm going to be brutally frank with you, there is a thing there. There's a there there. There's a core skill, and it's kind of mysterious, and I'm still finding the right language to communicate it to you here. But there's a thing there that's at the heart of really good psychedelic therapy that is not the same thing as what you think of when you think of psychedelic therapy, which is eye shades, music, holy moly, the mushrooms told me, and now I'm enlightened and now I'm healed. That's not it, right? There's a mechanism, there's a thing, there's a way to do this. But again, that's hard to scale too, because it requires a nuanced set of skills and set of training. And it takes time to get the feel for it, right? But good psychedelic therapy also does not scale very well. And the type of psychedelic therapy that they're kind of trying to like convey to you at a mass level and teach you isn't that effective. I would say that that's also true in the psychedelic context. So those are my major points for the video here, but I'd love to know what you think. Did I offend you in this video with my opinion? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are you curious to know more? Please leave a comment down below. Let me know what hit home for you here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.